This is maybe the single greatest piece of advice I've ever received from my mother. She always told me, consider the source. And this completely shaped the way that I received and ingested and took in information. And I think this really defines our current modern age and how we are very easily emotionally manipulated and swayed by the media, by ads, by other people's opinions and advices. And I feel like if you really take in this single piece of advice, it will change your life forever.
So I just recently received an unsolicited piece of advice, and I don't even know if I should be using this as an example, but I'm just going to say it. So this person gave me a piece of advice, and like, there's not a lot of people who are in my sphere who can even, like, most people don't give me advice, but this person's close to me, and I respect their opinions. I respect their perspective. I respect them as a human. I respect their values. So they just gave me advice, and I was like, interesting. So this person tells me, you should help your man pay a bill. And if you know me, you know I've done a lot of work on my feminine energy, on receiving, on resting in my feminine, on even being able to give, like being able to give, being able to receive. Because if you have an open hand, you're giving and you're open to receive, right? So I've done a lot of work on that. And so when this person gave me this piece of advice, I was kind of like scratching my head a little bit, like, okay, like I usually don't take unsolicited advice, which I didn't take it, but I was just like open to what this person had to say. So I was like, well, why'd you say that? Like, it was so random. Like, we weren't even talking about anything like that. Like, and also finances are very personal and relationships are very personal. So it's like, I was kind of thrown off, but they were just like, if anything happens, if this person like breaks their legs and can't work anymore, you should be able to, like, hold down the fort. Completely agree. But from my perspective, I'm like, if this person, from my values, right? This is why you should always have your personal values as a barometer to use against anything from the outside world. So I'm like, if this person's an actual provider, then I would hope that they would have, like, injury insurance through their job. I would hope they would have investment savings. I would hope they would feel safe and stable to me for me to be able to go, okay, this is a person who I want to be with. So that's my thought process. And then I also added, like, people a lot of times they think from, and I think about this too, like fear versus love. Anyone can give you advice from a place of fear versus love, whether it could do with relationships, with money, with health, like any area of your life, they can give you advice out of fear. And most people aren't adept and aware enough to go, hey, I'm in a bad place in my relationship. I'm in a bad place in my business. I'm in a bad place with my health. You shouldn't take my advice. Or, I'm giving you advice, but take it with a grain of salt. Most people aren't aware enough to say that. They aren't conscious enough to go, hey, I'm giving you this advice, but take it with a grain of salt. This person actually did do this. They were like, you don't have to take my advice. I appreciate that. Like, they're a very conscious person, but it's also like, you should always say, is this coming from love or fear? And so I realized, like, I don't want to be in survival. I don't want to go, well, if something happened, if everything falls apart, I need to be able to pick it up. I want to have a partner who is stable enough, who is secure enough, who is, that is what aligns with my values. Someone who will have a backup plan, a plan A, B, and C. That is what a provider is to me. That is what a good partner is to me. I'm not sitting here spending all my money and then we end up at zero. So I would hope that you wouldn't be doing that either. And I'm like, I would want for me to be in a good place to where even if something did happen, he'd be like, you know what, babe, I got us for at least 2 years. I have 6 months of savings. I have, 2 years worth of investments. I'm going to take money out of here. I'm going to take money out of there. Like, I want someone who has backup plans, who has plan A, B, and C. And a lot of people in survival can't even fathom that. They're always like, well, if something happens and if stuff falls to the ground, you know, you need to be able to pick it back up. And I'm like, I'm not even in that mind state. I'm not even in that mental space. And me and my partner aren't even in that space. And even when I brought it to him, I was like, yeah, this person like said this to me. And he was like, he's me and him are right here. He was like people, like, people are not even in the mental capacity to go, anything happens to this person, they have plan A, B, and C, and they will never put you in survival. And of course, you should have investments and savings and all of these things. And if anything did happen to your partner, worst case scenario, of course, you should be able to pick it up. But I'm like, I make my own money. Like, I'm financially independent. Like, of course, like I've been taking care of myself since I was 17 and I left and I went to the military. Like, like common sense would tell you, of course, I'm gonna be able to take care of myself. Most modern women can take care of themselves and do take care of themselves. So it was kind of just very random, but it also made me think, like, consider the source. Like, always consider the source. Consider where that person is in their relationship. Consider where that person is in their finances if they're giving you financial advice. Like, they always say, like, would you take workout advice from like an obese person? Would you take advice from a person who got divorced about relationships? Like, no, you wouldn't, because it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? But a lot of people who give advice on the internet or in your real life aren't in a good space to even give you advice in anything. And also, even if they are, like, imagine you have someone who goes, you should live with your partner for 2 to 3 years before getting married. That's good advice for some people. But if you're going back to your own personal values, let's say you are Muslim or you're Christian or something like that, maybe it's not in your personal values to live with someone before you are engaged or married. And you always have to go back to your own value system. Like, that is probably the greatest piece of advice that I've ever gotten. And also, not even just your own value system, but like, where is this person at mentally? Where is this person at in this area of their life? Where is this person at, like, emotionally? Like, maybe they're giving advice out of fear and not out of love. Like, you always have to use that as a barometer for you. Like, does this feel expansive? Does it feel like it's collapsing? Like, does it feel like a contraction? Does it feel like good advice and like, oh, that's really like that lights me up? Or does it feel like something negative? And you have to do that with anything, with news outlets. You have to consider where they are politically, where they are, like, what is this person's agenda? What is their motive? What are they trying to put out to you? That like, are they trying to sway you one way or another? Are they trying to sell you something? They might be trying to sell you something and going, this is the best thing ever in the world. And of course they're going to say that because they're selling that thing, So I feel like that's made me a better consumer, like a consumer of information, a consumer of advice, just like a better consumer of anything that the world throws at me, because the world's going to say everything, like, in anything, because we are a globalized world now. You can get advice from someone in like Ethiopia. You can get advice from somebody in Great Britain. You can get advice from somebody like in Thailand. Like, you just, like, you can get advice from someone in Mexico. Like, you just don't know where people's value systems are from. You don't know where like what their history is. You just don't know. So I feel like the best thing to do is to consider the source in whatever specific area they're giving you advice, consider the emotional state of the source, always test it. Like, is this love versus fear? And also, like, consider your own value system and like how you would even like take and receive in advice. And I feel like once you do that, it will like completely change the way you interact with receiving information. So I hope this helps.